What if everything you've ever known, the people around you, the objects you touch, even your own thoughts, were just echoes of something deeper, not as solid as they seem? Michael Talbot believed that the reality we live in is not fixed or physical, but more like a projection, an illusion born from a much more fundamental layer of existence. His childhood wasn't ordinary. He witnessed objects moving without explanation, experienced states of awareness outside his body, and was haunted by events that defied logic. These moments didn't scare him. They pushed him to question the nature of the world itself. According to Talbot, the universe may be structured similarly to a hologram. That means every tiny portion of reality might contain the pattern of the entire cosmos. You're not just part of the universe. In a sense, it's all within you. This changes everything. The need to send information from one person to another dissolves. If each of us holds the whole within us, then connection becomes something entirely different. Recognition, not transmission. Quantum physics lends credibility to this. Subatomic particles have been observed to influence each other across vast distances instantly, something traditional science struggles to explain. Talbot tied this to the same principle, that space and time might be illusions, tools our minds use to make sense of a far more complex order. In his view, reality is fluid, not rigid or objective. It bends in response to consciousness. That's why things like telepathy, visions of the future, or seemingly magical experiences don't require superstition to be understood. If the world is a projection, then what we experience is shaped by the observer as much as by the observed. He compared our perspective to shadows dancing on a wall, unaware of the immense truth behind the light that casts them. Talbot believed what we call the real world is a simplified version of something vaster, a kind of coded signal we decode with our minds. Sadly, Talbot's voice was silenced in 1992, just a year after releasing the holographic universe. He had planned to take his ideas further, to teach others how to apply them, but the second part of his work never came. While some speculate about the timing and cause of his death, what remains is the profound impact of his vision. His ideas still ripple through the minds of those seeking answers to questions science often avoids. He left behind not just a theory, but an invitation to question the fabric of what we call reality, and consider the possibility that we're all part of something far more mysterious and far more connected than we ever imagined. Long before Talbot introduced his bold ideas to the world, two brilliant minds were already chipping away at the limits of conventional science. One was David Bohm, a physicist once mentored by Einstein. The other, Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist, fascinated by how the brain stores memory. Strangely enough, both arrived at insights that mirrored each other, even though they worked in completely different fields. Bohm noticed that particles at the quantum level didn't behave in predictable ways. They didn't stay in one place or move in neat, measurable paths. Instead, they acted as if they were just pieces of something greater, something hidden, connected not through space, but through some deeper structure beyond time and distance. Pribram, on the other hand, discovered that memories weren't stored in specific spots in the brain like files in a cabinet. Instead, they appeared to be distributed across the brain, just like a hologram, where every part holds the full image. Talbot saw these two discoveries as pieces of the same puzzle. Bohm's invisible order of reality and Pribram's distributed brain functions seemed to suggest that both the universe and the human mind might be structured in a similar way, holographically. In a holographic system, there's no true separation between parts. Even the tiniest piece reflects the entirety. That idea shatters the notion of isolation between people, between atoms, between thoughts. It's not just poetic, it's mathematical. and it's powerful. Talbot believed this model could explain some of the strangest phenomena we encounter, from intuitive flashes to instant connections between minds. But more importantly, it offered a new way to think about who we are and how we fit into the universe. This theory also provides a fresh take on the baffling concept of quantum entanglement, when two particles, once connected, continue to affect each other no matter how far they drift apart. Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance, but Bohm saw something else, evidence of a deeper level of organization where separation doesn't truly exist. To illustrate, think of a hologram projected onto a screen. What we see is a crisp three-dimensional image, but behind that illusion lies interference patterns, energy fields, and encoded information. According to Talbot, what we call reality could function the same way, a vivid projection emerging from a hidden unified structure. Your chair, your phone, the trees outside, all part of a visible layer. But beneath that, everything dissolves into something much more subtle. Bohm called this the implicate order, a realm where distinctions between matter, mind, and meaning blur and intertwine. This vision didn't reject science, it expanded. It offered a framework where physics, consciousness, and even the mystical could coexist. For Talbot, Bohm and Pribram weren't just scientists, they were map-makers charting the edges of a territory we're only beginning to understand. What if the world around you isn't fixed, but responsive, shaped in part by the very thoughts you think? Michael Talbot believed that consciousness isn't just a passenger in the universe, it's a co-creator. The mind, in his view, doesn't simply interpret reality, it participates in forming it. This isn't just philosophy, it's a perspective rooted in the structure of the holographic model. If each person carries within themselves the imprint of the entire universe, then boundaries between internal and external become more symbolic than actual. You're not isolated in your thoughts, you're plugged into something much larger. This would mean that access to information, events, or even people's emotions doesn't require messages or signals flying through the air. It's more like remembering something that was already there, hidden beneath the surface. Under this model, ideas like telepathy or intuitive insights aren't supernatural. They're expected. Consciousness in Talbot's framework acts as a lens. It doesn't passively absorb the world. It filters, sculpts, and even bends. Think of a radio tuning into a frequency. The station you hear depends on your settings, not the signal's existence. Talbot suggested we operate in a similar way, tuning into specific slices of reality based on our awareness. This idea reframes phenomena long dismissed as fantasy, a gut feeling, a dream that later comes true, a moment of clarity when everything aligns. These become evidence, not outliers. They point to the mind's deep connection with what lies beyond the visible. But more than that, this vision of consciousness gives each person a kind of quiet power. If what you focus on, emotionally, mentally, energetically, shapes the unfolding of your experience, then your state of being becomes a creative force. Talbot didn't see consciousness as trapped in the brain, locked behind bone. He saw it as expansive, woven into the very nature of existence itself, a force that not only perceives reality, but also gently nudges it, colors it, redirects it. It's a perspective that asks more of us. If your mind has the potential to shape your world, then your thoughts are not just private echoes. They're tools, instruments, maybe even builders of reality itself. The mind doesn't just witness the world, equally it changes it. That's not just metaphor. In study after study, belief has shown itself capable of rewriting the body's responses, as if reality itself were waiting for instructions from within. Michael Talbot was fascinated by this, not just because it was strange, but because it matched everything the holographic model implied. If consciousness helps generate the physical world, then belief isn't a passive state. It's a force. One striking case he referenced involved a group of soldiers. All of them marched the same distance, yet were told wildly different numbers. Some heard they'd walk 10 miles, others 20, and others 30. The surprising part? Their physical states aligned not with the truth, but with what they believed. Bodies exhausted from distances they hadn't actually covered, all because their minds said they had, and that's just one example. The phenomenon gets even more powerful when life is on the line. There was a man diagnosed with terminal cancer, given only days to live. Desperate, he requested a new experimental drug. Miraculously, the tumors shrank fast. He recovered. But then he read a report saying the drug might not be effective after all. His condition quickly worsened. When his doctor, suspecting the mind's role, gave him a harmless injection, pretending it was a stronger version of the drug, the patient improved again. Only when the truth became undeniable, when he discovered the treatment was worthless, did the illness finally return, this time fatal. It wasn't chemistry driving the healing. It was conviction. But belief cuts both ways. In another study, cancer patients were warned that a treatment might cause hair loss. A group given only a placebo still lost their hair simply because they expected to. This is the nocebo effect. When belief in something harmful manifests symptoms, even without a real cause, these stories aren't random anomalies. They reveal a system that operates not just on molecules but on meaning. In Talbot's view, they validate the idea that consciousness projects onto the body, onto circumstances, onto what we call reality. The human organism doesn't just react to stimuli, it responds to inner models of truth. This doesn't mean every thought becomes real, but it does suggest that patterns of expectation, what we assume, fear, or trust, play a much greater role in shaping our experience than we've been taught. And that leads to a crucial insight. We must be mindful of the narratives we carry. Our internal beliefs aren't just ideas, they're blueprints. Whether healing or harming, they set the stage for how our bodies and lives unfold. Things that move on their own. A sudden chill in the air, an object vanishing only to reappear somewhere else. For many, these are stories best left to ghost tales and horror films. But for Michael Talbot, they were part of his life. And they held clues about the true structure of existence. Rather than dismissing these moments as coincidence or delusion, Talbot looked at them through the lens of the holographic model. If the world is not fixed or separate, if everything is part of a unified field, then events we call paranormal might not be outside the laws of nature at all. They might simply obey laws we don't fully understand yet. Take psychokinesis. The idea that thought alone can move objects. Traditional explanations often imagine it as some kind of energy burst from the mind pushing physical matter. But Talbot leaned on David Bohm's perspective. What if there's no distance between mind and object to begin with? What if what we're really seeing is resonance between two parts of the same whole? Instead of power being transmitted, it's possible the mind and the object are already entangled, like ripples across a single surface. When one moves, so does the other, not because of force, but because they were never truly separate. He applied this thinking to a wide range of phenomena: clairvoyance, remote viewing, near-death experiences, and especially his own encounters with poltergeist-like activity. He noted patterns. Emotional turbulence seemed to heighten the intensity of these manifestations. When he was calm, strange events were mild, even playful. During personal distress, they turned chaotic, violent even. This emotional link wasn't just intriguing, it pointed to something profound, that the inner world could be shaping the outer one directly. That feelings, fears, and mental states might ripple out into reality in ways we barely comprehend. Researchers like Kenneth Ring also contributed to this idea, especially through studies of people who had been clinically dead and revived. Many described places where thought and environment blended. Wanting food made it appear, feeling exposed summoned clothes. These weren't hallucinations, not to those who experienced them. They were more vivid, more meaningful than waking life. And the dreams? Lucid dreams often mirror this fluidity. In them, realization brings control. The moment you recognize you're dreaming, the world bends to your will. Could that be because in that state, you're closer to the source of projection, the level from which all realities emerge? Talbot believed the holographic model could explain all of this, that what we've labeled supernatural might just be a different layer of the same system, one we tap into when the mind steps outside its usual boundaries. Even so-called haunted encounters might be less about spirits and more about states of consciousness resonating with hidden dimensions. Perhaps they're not visitors but reflections, echoes of our own unresolved energies amplified through a holographic lens. It's a radical idea that the universe listens not just to words or actions, but to emotional frequencies. That what we call paranormal may actually be perfectly normal, just rarely accessed. We often think of ourselves as passengers in life, born into a world we didn't choose, shaped by forces beyond our control. But what if that's only half the story? What if, rather than simply reacting to reality, we're helping to craft it? Michael Talbot believed we're not just observers, we're participants in the construction of existence. Consciousness, he suggested, doesn't operate like a camera capturing life as it happens. It acts more like a projector, casting meaning onto the canvas of experience. This isn't about imagination or wishful thinking. It's about the possibility that reality is pliable, and that thought, emotion, and intention leave marks on it. He saw life as a kind of training ground. According to him, we're not fully awakened beings, not yet. We're souls learning to steer, much like a child fiddling with the controls of a machine it doesn't fully understand. If we had the ability to instantly manifest every thought, every passing worry or desire, it would likely create chaos. So there's a buffer, a delay, a layer of reality that helps filter what we're truly ready to handle, and as awareness deepens, that buffer thins. Talbot pointed to mystical states, psychic moments, and so-called supernatural events as signs that we're slowly tapping into this potential. These aren't random flukes. They're glimpses of how reality could work once we gain emotional and mental maturity. He also noted that what we attract into our lives isn't always what we consciously ask for, but rather what reflects our inner patterns. Pain, joy, synchronicities, or repeated struggles might not be accidents. They could be mirrors, showing us what we need to recognize in ourselves. This view reframes the entire concept of fate or destiny. It's not about being handed a script, it's about learning how to write one. Still, that kind of power requires responsibility. Talbot warned that wielding the creative force of consciousness without understanding it could lead to unintended consequences. That's why development, emotional clarity, mental discipline, spiritual growth becomes essential. As our perception expands, so does our influence. But that influence only works harmoniously when paired with wisdom. It's like being given the ability to shape water without understanding how to swim. Talbot saw the universe as intelligent, responsive, and participatory, and within it, each of us is a creator in the making, not just shaping our own path, but adding threads to the fabric of shared reality. For centuries, mystics have spoken of a world behind the world, not a fantasy, but a level of existence more real than what we see with our eyes. Michael Talbot didn't dismiss these ancient teachings. He connected them to modern science. He often drew parallels between timeless spiritual philosophies and the holographic view of reality. One concept that especially resonated with him was Maya, the idea rooted in Hindu tradition that the world we perceive is a kind of illusion, not false, but incomplete, a surface layer that distracts us from something deeper. Talbot believed that we are not just fragments of this illusion, but sources of projection ourselves. We're not merely being shaped by experience, we're shaping it from within. And until we awaken to that fact, we mistake the outer world as all there. It's a bit like confusing the movie screen for the story. You might see action and drama, but miss the projector entirely. He also suggested that most people interact with reality unconsciously, unaware of how their own thoughts, emotions, and beliefs contribute to the scenes unfolding around them. Meanwhile, mystics, through introspection, discipline, and awareness, tap into the mechanics behind the illusion. They discover that reality bends not through force, but through presence. According to Talbot, we are each born with immense creative potential, but most of us haven't learned how to use it. It's as if we've been handed the controls to a powerful aircraft, yet we're still figuring out which buttons do what. Until then, we may cause turbulence without meaning to, but learning to navigate the inner landscape, our emotions, perceptions, and intentions can change everything. It's through this inner work that the illusion begins to dissolve. And with it, a different kind of clarity appears, not just about the universe, but about who we really are. Talbot wasn't trying to draw a line between science and spirituality. He was trying to erase one. In his view, the two were different. Languages pointing to the same truth, that the essence of existence isn't outside us, it's woven into who we are. Michael Talbot wasn't finished. That much is clear. His first book, The Holographic Universe, was only meant to be the beginning. He had plans, a second volume, filled with practical ways to apply his ideas in everyday life. Tools, insights, maybe even methods to help people shape reality more consciously. But in 1992, just a year after the book's release, Talbot died unexpectedly. The official cause was lymphoma. Still, the timing, the abrupt end to such a profound exploration, left many with questions. Some believe it was coincidence, others aren't so sure. Whispers began to circulate that his work had revealed too much, or that he was channeling something beyond his own understanding. Speculations multiplied, but the truth, like much of what he studied, remains hidden. What's undeniable is the sense of something unfinished, like a symphony that stops mid-note. He had just begun to scratch the surface of what this new paradigm could mean, not just in theory, but in action. How to live differently, how to think with more awareness, how to access the deeper intelligence beneath the surface of things. Despite his early departure, the ideas he left behind continue to ripple through the minds of seekers, skeptics, scientists, and spiritualists alike. His voice echoes in discussions about consciousness, energy, and the mysterious nature of existence. He didn't just share information, he shifted the lens through which people view reality. He challenged the belief that the world is fixed, external and unchangeable. Instead, he invited us to consider the possibility that we are immersed in a responsive field, a mirror that reflects more than just our physical movements. Though Talbot's physical presence is gone, his work continues to inspire those willing to ask deeper questions. What is real? What is imagined? And where do the two begin to overlap? In the end, maybe that's the gift he left us. Not a finished manual, but an open door. An invitation to explore the mystery ourselves, to pick up where he left off and start shaping the world from the inside out.